This one's for you.
This is Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie.
And you can
So have you ever heard of electronic harassment? Taking place when someone uses electronic devices to invade your privacy, invade your property. What about biochip implants, They're just starting to come to market. And what is the real purpose behind all of those? And hey, what about the barcode? Remember when you go shopping? What is that all about, too? My guest, Roger Tulsis, will be back with him in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Roger Tulsis is a Los Angeles private investigator that specializes in electronic countermeasures. In the past 30 years, he has swept, listen to this now, more than 2,500 locations for bugs and wiretaps. He has worked for millionaires, gangsters, who would they be? Movie stars, superstar athletes, cult leaders, politicians, doctors, lawyers, real estate moguls, psychics, UFO contactees, gamblers, casinos, sport betting operations, boiler room operators, smugglers, union leaders, aircraft builders, soldiers of fortune, madams, cult deprogrammers, diplomats, arms dealers, name a few. In recent years, his business has included helping victims of electronic harassment. Electronic harassment takes place if someone uses any electronic device to aid them in invading your person or property for the purpose of gathering information illegally or for the purpose of causing physical harm to you. Mr. Tulsis uses more than $100,000 of high-tech equipment to try to identify the sources of electronic harassment. Welcome tonight, Roger, to Coast. How are you?
Hey, thank you, George. Terrific to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. By the way, are our phones bugged out as we speak? Are we okay?
Everybody's phones are pre-wired for bugs these days under the CALEA law. So
oh, really?
we can talk about that, yeah.
I did not know that.
They added a tax on to every person paying a phone bill, and they implemented pre-wiring not only your telephones, but your ISP lines and also pagers.
The privacy has gone out the window, isn't it?
Well, this is a very serious matter. You know, this is something we really need to spend some time on tonight because our constitutional rights are getting crushed.
Compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when did you really start seeing these rights getting whittled away?
Well, it didn't happen as fast as I expected because, you know, with 1984, that book was truly, he was a visionary, George Orwell.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, if you even go and read that now, I've got an original copy here that I bought off eBay recently in I think it's 1947. But this fella really saw it coming, and of course, you know, it's a lot of what he's talking about in terms of a TV camera in everybody's home hasn't really been implemented yet. But you know, then you think back a month or two ago where there was a case in the courts where the police had actually used a thermal detection system to look through the walls of
I remember that case.
The individual's house and detect that he was growing marijuana plants by the heat. So there was that particular case was it was fortunate that the courts found that since this particular electronic device did go inside the home, that it was unacceptable. And they did kick that case out and say that type of measurement, because it did go within the borders of the home, was a Fourth Amendment violation. So there was a win on that one. But still, the point is that we now have computers in our homes. A lot of people have TV cameras hooked to those computers, and if you're a competent hacker, then you can not only just dial someone's computer up, but then probably turn their TV camera on as well. They
might not even know it. People in the homes might be walking around and not even know that somebody's spying on them.
Yeah, you wouldn't even. As a matter of fact, this whole law, this whole Patriot Bill, which is another very bad piece of news for privacy, discusses them invading your computers and doing that almost without a warrant. Really what they're talking about there is, instead of a normal warrant where they knock on your door and hand you the paper, and the paper states what they're looking for, and state that it's authorized by a judicial officer and that kind of thing. Now they can do a surreptitious entry, copy your hard drive, photograph your papers, and send you a notification somewhere 30, 60 days down the line after the fact.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, this is in the new Patriot Bill.
Well, you know, and Ashcroft wants to get in Patriot Bill 2, and Bush is a little opposed to doing that right now at this point. There is that fine line, Roger, between invasion of privacy and national or security in general of the American public. And how do you distinguish that fine line? Because somebody's going to cross over it and say, look, we're doing it to help you.
Well, it's mission creep is the real problem. You know, originally they say, well, we're only going to do this much because it makes sense to do this much. But next thing you know, especially when you're dealing with government agencies and the fact that they absorb so much money in their budgets and they constantly want to spend all the money and get more the following year, add more agents and expand their powers. You know, the Founding Fathers, when you go back to the original Constitution, the Founding Fathers had very little they wanted the federal government to do. You know, the states basically were the sovereigns,
right?
And all they wanted the federal government to do is to regulate commerce between the states and make treaties with other countries and hold a standing army. Very limited powers, and of course, you know, we've had this monster federal expansion, and now we're talking $6 trillion in debt.
Electronic harassment or harassment, depending on how one likes to say it, has been around. You know, I used to see these old movies where some guy would climb a telephone pole and hook up these little wires and listen in on some conversation. Now, as you say, it's gotten so easy. I mean, I bet the American public, I bet us, we don't even understand or comprehend just how easy it is to tap into us, is there?
Yeah, sure. Well, with this new CALEA law, basically, you're on a wide area network to the federal agencies. All they have to do is go on their wide area network, or they can actually use an internet link as well. And they can throw a switch and bring all your conversations right into their database.
Incredible.
Right to their hard drive. And there are softwares, one software called Lincoln. I don't know where they came up with that one. It's almost humorous. But at any rate, there's a software company that facilitates collecting all this information, digitally organizing it. And not only that, but what it also does is that as you make outgoing calls and outgoing numbers, call people, it will make a computer graphic network pattern of everybody that you call. In other words, as each new party comes on that you make a dial, that you dial up, it comes on as a box in this diagram that it keeps adding to.
It creates like a map.
Exactly. It creates a map of all your contacts and people.
Are there buzzwords, too, that this software picks up? I mean, if somebody talks about a bomb or terrorist activity, does that kick that stuff up, too?
Well, it could. It could, because basically you're digitizing the words, and then it's just voice recognition stuff. Once they've got a sample of your voice pattern, almost like in the home computer systems where the system asks you to say certain words to begin to recognize the way you would, not only your voice, but the way you inflect things. And that way it accommodates its voice recognition system. So, yeah. And of course the NSA has been doing that for quite some time, and they do it on international calls, for sure. But then again, I really feel that, we're getting so gray area about where do these covert agencies really have jurisdiction to operate. Before this 9/11 incident, they were really limited to operating outside the United States, and now it's a whole different ballgame. Now we're talking about having Central Intelligence active here inside the country, and all the consequences with having people spying on people within the country itself.